Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going way back. We're tracing a lineage deep into the desert sands to uncover this incredible origin story about a people who were scattered, basically forgotten, and then somehow rose up to literally shape history. So, we're gonna start with a pretty fundamental question. How in the world did a group of scattered people, who were basically strangers in their own holy city, become one of the most powerful tribes in all of Arabia? And right in the middle of this huge, epic story, there's this really personal one about a young man whose entire sense of self was just shattered by a single word, and it forced him to make a choice. Was he gonna be a forgotten exile or a legendary leader? Okay, so let's dive right in. To really get this, we have to set the scene. We're in pre-Islamic Mecca, a city that had, believe it or not, lost its connection to the very people who founded it. You've got to picture this. For centuries, the actual descendants of the men who built the Kaaba were just wandering the streets that their own ancestors had established. But they had no power, no influence, they were totally displaced, and their most sacred duty, caring for the holy house, was being managed by other, more powerful tribes. But here's the thing. A divine plan was already in motion. And it all went back to this prayer made by Abraham himself, centuries earlier, right there at the Kaaba. The stage was slowly being set for these scattered descendants to finally be gathered together again. So let's take a look at how this whole plan started to come together, piece by piece, starting with the very first figures who began pulling all these disparate threads together. Now, this journey from being totally fragmented to becoming a unified people, well, it didn't happen overnight. The very first steps began with a man named Mudar, and he introduced an innovation that would change absolutely everything. And this is what he invented, al-Khida. It's this incredible form of poetry, like a rhythmic call, that let a single person guide a whole caravan of camels. And get this, in 2022, UNESCO actually recognized this ancient art form as a piece of intangible cultural heritage. How cool is that? Before Mudar, trying to manage a bunch of camels was just chaos. His invention brought order out of that chaos, and it made long-distance trade and travel so much easier. He basically taught a scattered people how to get organized, starting with their most valuable asset. But the name that would define this lineage forever, that came from another key ancestor, a man named Fihr ibn Malik. And the name itself, well, it tells you the whole story. Quresh comes from the word takarrush, which literally means the act of gathering or assembling something that was once scattered. It's all right there in the name. Zofida basically did for the people what Mudar had done for the camels. He brought all the dispersed clans of Ibrahim's lineage together. And historians actually confirm this. They trace the bloodlines of all the major Meccan clans. We're talking Banu Makhzum, Banu Umayyah, all of them, right back to him. He was the great unifier. So Fihr laid the cornerstone, but he definitely wasn't the last builder. Others would come after him, and each one added another crucial piece to the structure of what would become Meccan society. And this shows you the step-by-step progress, generation after generation. It's brilliant. Fihr unites the people. Then Qusay comes along and gives them a system of government. Then Hashim brings them wealth and prosperity through trade. And finally, Abd al-Muttalib solidifies their role as the guardians of the Kaaba. Each one built on what the last one did. So here's the crucial point. This wasn't just about getting rich or powerful. It was about meticulously building a society with laws, with trade, with a sacred duty that commanded respect all across Arabia. A society that was strong enough to eventually protect an orphan who was going to bring a new message to the entire world. All right, now let's get back to that boy from our opening question, because his life perfectly embodies this entire struggle, this journey from fragmentation to destiny. So his story starts with loss. He was born into this noble lineage right there in Mecca, but his father died when he was just a baby, which left him and his mother in a really vulnerable position. In the tough, unforgiving society of pre-Islamic Arabia, a widow just didn't have many options. So his mother, Fatima, she remarried a man from the Banu Adhra tribe and moved with young Zayd all the way to Syria, a land of cool breezes and green valleys, a complete world away from the harsh desert of Mecca. And he thrived there. Zayd grew up into this strong, really capable young man who was good at everything he did. But he was living a lie, and he had no idea. He was completely oblivious to his real heritage. He thought he was Syrian, never knowing that the blood of Ibrahim's descendants, the unifiers of Quraysh, was running through his veins. And then, one day, it all came crashing down. During some petty argument with his childhood friends, you know how it is, his success made them jealous, they hurled this insult at him. They called him Qusay, which means an outsider, a distant one, a foreigner. That one word just shattered his reality. He confronts his mother and she confirms it's true. The man he'd called father his whole life wasn't his biological one, and he was in fact an outsider there. His entire world just collapsed into a massive identity crisis. But out of the depths of that crisis, something powerful happened, a transformation. The boy who was Zayd, the unknowing exile, he was gone. And in his place rose a man with a real purpose. He took the very insult that broke him and he embraced it. From that day on, he called himself Qusay, and he made a vow to his mother that he would return to Mecca and reclaim his people's birthright to make sure the guardianship of the Kaaba was back in the hands of Ibrahim's true heirs. You see, this whole history, this multi-generational story of being scattered, then gathered, then fighting to reclaim a legacy, it wasn't just some historical backdrop. It formed the deep, resilient roots from which the Prophet's mission and really the tree of Islam itself would one day grow.